Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show here on STV2. The last programme of the season. It's hard to believe we finally got there after so many guests. We bring you the Cup Final special. It's Aberdeen against Celtic, the last game of the domestic season as well. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin. I'm delighted to say our boot room guest is our long-time compadre on this programme, Archie MacPherson. We're delighted to have you on STV2, Archie.
Thank you.
In fact, I think it's fair to say, Ruffy, you talk about your 3 World Cups. I think Archie may lay claim to be on every station and even new startups all the way over the last 50-odd years. you must have been on them all.
Yeah, and obviously any World Cup we were at, Archie was there. And, professional as ever.
I know you only too well from some pleasant nights and so on, you know. Argentina in particular.
Absolutely.
You know, early on.
And of course there was football in there as well. But one of the things I was going to say to you, we are going to talk about in this programme what we've been doing as a special all week, Archie, which is the year of 1967. Will we ever see the like again?
No, it's unique. Boys from the Glasgow district, 30 miles around, won a European Cup. Not just won a European Cup, but against one of the most formidable defensive forces in world football, Inter, under Herrera. And they did it in style. And, you know, I was writing about this recently, and it suddenly dawned on me when I was looking back at things and remembering sitting in the commentary position with Kenneth Wolstenholme, who was a great commentator, just how easily Celtic won. I mean, OK, they had to work very hard to win 2-1, but they were totally on top. After they got that penalty, the game simply turned, swivelled, and the fulcrum was the penalty. As I wrote, Celtic looked as if they had been insulted by giving away that goal, although Steen thought it wasn't a penalty in the first place, but he would, wouldn't he? So after that, it was just attack after attack, as Alan has been pointing out to me. Sarti, who was supposedly the weakness in that side, had marvellous saves, including one which he held behind his head. It went behind him, and he held it like a basketball. So it was incredible, the style of football. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that suddenly the whole world woke up and said, look, defensive football is out. But what it did do was suggest to people, look, if you've got talent and you're confident in the talent and you've got a manager with courage, you have a go. And they certainly had a go, and it was triumphant. Yeah,
absolutely. And the year itself, Archie, again, is something special because we've been highlighting in the company of Jim McCalliog, Willie Henderson, you know, Rangers Cup Winners' Cup final. Defeating England in their own backyard when they're reigning world champions. I mean, and of course, let's not forget Kilmarnock and Dundee United.
Yeah, Kilmarnock got to a semi-final of the first cup. Dundee United beat Barcelona, the holders of that cup. So it does give you an idea of the depth and the quality of Scottish football at that stage. I'm always weeping with nostalgia just even talking about it. And, you know, I do hate always bringing up the past and the present and then suddenly seeming to suggest we had seen the best. But you give, there is always the possibility of somebody else coming through. I would say it's slightly ludicrous, some of the headlines I've seen this morning, about how there's a whiff of Lisbon lines about the present Celtic team. The present Celtic team deserve every praise for what they've done in domestic football. But as I put, the word I used at the start about this, unique. There will never, ever be another occasion in which a team has done it the way Celtic did it in '67. So pat them on the back, give them all the kudos you can. They will never be the Lions.
Yeah, I think, Ruffy, even to try and replicate it, they'd need to come up with 3 world-class players in their team, because if ever I sat in a chair and listened to Bertie Auld, you know, tell me exactly who the 3 world-class players were in his team, and I was in awe of everything he was saying. I mean, they would really need to, Brendan Rodgers would need to unearth 3 gems, and even then the whole landscape of European football has changed.
Yeah, it certainly has. Obviously, the money that's getting branded about, you know, in all these countries is unbelievable, and I don't think Celtic will ever compete at that level again, yeah, they'll be around about the edges of it, and that's what they're saying. The bonus is last 16. That's what you're hanging on to, you know. But that team obviously went on and won it. And the other thing I noticed the other night there, it was the two fullbacks that won it.
Yeah.
The two left and right fullback were in the 18, the opposition's 18-yard box, making passes. Yeah. It was just fantastic to see it again.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. That's 1967. We'll talk more with Archie on that incredible year later on in the programme. To the present day, Derek McInnes has been speaking. The Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers has also been speaking. They've been putting a positive spin on this while being respectful towards each other's teams. But you look at the odds here on this, Ruffy. Celtic 1-2 with most bookies, red hot favourites to complete the treble, go through the domestic season unbeaten, become the Invincibles. It's all there for them.
It is all there for them, and you can't take it away from them. The record against Aberdeen this year is there for everybody to see. The results are there. But the Aberdeen manager, Derek, will know that this is a one-off game. There's strange things can happen. We've seen English Cup finals, we've seen Scottish Cup finals that look as if the obvious is going to happen, and for some reason, a silly tackle, somebody gets sent off with a cup final, there's a handball, the referee doesn't see it, things turn around, you know, you take your chances in the game. And certainly Aberdeen have got players that Celtic should be treating with a bit of respect, because if they turn up, and that's the big word, if they turn up, they certainly have got good players on that side that could cause you trouble. The big thing is, in a final, Derek hasn't seen the best of his side. He's been disappointed every time he gets there, and maybe he can put his finger on why this is, and you might see a different Aberdeen.
Well, the League Cup final was a disappointment for them, Archie, but the statistics don't lie. 12 goals conceded against Celtic, only 2 scored against them.
Well, I was talking about the Lions and saying how brave they were to take on this team by attacking and attacking. Aberdeen will have to defend very well. I don't think any team can take Celtic on level terms. That is, that you think you can get past them and beat them. Aberdeen have got to think how to beat them. And I think they really have to be very basic about defending the line well and counter-attacking well. I think that is the only possible chance they have of going against the betting here. And they've got good players. They've got counter-attacking players like McGinn, and of course Hayes on the left-hand side. You know, players like that who can use speed and thrust if Celtic are pushing forward. The problem is, of course, they've got a manager. Celtic manager is not daft, as we all know. He knows perfectly well the different kind of ways Aberdeen would play. And even though they decide to play that way, I think he's got enough ammunition to see it through.
Yeah, and let's look, Ruffy, at the possible formations on this. I don't think it'll be too far away from it as far as the teams are concerned. Aberdeen, Derek McInnes has maybe a dilemma, I don't know, with Ryan Jack. He's going to Rangers, but he's going to play for Aberdeen. Graham Shinney's going to captain the side. I mean, there might be the odd surprise here and there, but that looks as if it's the team that he's been settled with most of the season. And I mean, where are the dangers for Celtic there in your mind? Yeah,
well, Archie's already touched on it. The wee boy Hayes, nominated in the 4 for the Player of the Year, and quite rightly so. Him on his game will cause any team problems. Obviously, McGinn, we know what he can do. I think Derek's got a dilemma with Rooney and Stockley. He seems to like Stockley, but probably prefers Rooney because he's a big-time player. But apart from that, I think that's a great move, giving Shinney the captaincy. Obviously, Jack's leaving the club, and I think that would be a massive boost for him. I think he is also a big player, but I think it's defensively, concentration-wise, Aberdeen need to get it right.
Peter, I was just going to ask you, can you think of a situation in the past when you were in the game when a major player was going into a cup final knowing he wasn't going to play for them any longer? Off the head, I can't think. It's a trend in the modern age, this, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just picking up on that point that Archie's making there, sometimes, Ruffy, you know, people don't like that in the modern age because they feel as if your head's elsewhere. But to be fair, Derek McInnes is stuck by him.
Yes, and I think the player has to respect that. I think it's a big bonus for him, saying to him, look, leave with your head high, leave with a medal, and that would just be the emphasis for him to play well tomorrow.
I'm not suggesting he wouldn't play his heart out for the club, but what I am saying is a very odd situation. You know? People will get it into their heads if he makes a mistake, or it's a bit of pressure on him as well.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. We'll look at the Celtic formation, get Archie's thoughts and Ruffy's on what has a familiar look about it, Brendan Rodgers' side this season. Are they about to become the Invincibles? Will the treble be in the bag? Join us after this quick break on The Football Show. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show here on STV2. Delighted that Archie MacPherson is still with us here in the studio. Prior to the break, we were talking about Aberdeen and their possible formation. Well, there's only one dilemma, I think, Ruffy, for Brendan Rodgers. Dembele's trained, the whole squad's fit. Have a look at this lineup and see where all the dangers lie, and he's got more than a few options to score goals in a cup final.
Yeah, I think you're right in maybe every position there. I know Roberts is playing absolutely fantastic, out his skin, and I would play him every time because he gets everybody off their seat. But I think Brendan at the start of games likes Forrest. I think he likes Forrest because obviously Forrest can defend better than Roberts. I think once the game opens up and players get tired, Roberts comes on and he's absolutely magnificent. So I think that's the only other call that he's got to make. But it's a great dilemma to be in, Roberts or Forrest.
Yeah, and of course, Archie, not quite similar to Ryan Jack, but it's similar to what you're saying. Here is a boy who's playing his last game for Celtic. He'll go back to Manchester City.
Different circumstances, though. You know, that's kind of been forced on him, whereas Ryan Jack, if it is true that he's going to Rangers, has made a choice to turn his back on Aberdeen. So it's a different kind of situation psychologically between them. But without doubt, I think one of the best, if not the best signing Neil Lennon made when he was at Celtic was Griffiths. Now, Griffiths was a kind of player, ability to score goals against a runner player, whatever, that took a team, Hibs, to 2 cup finals, who weren't good enough for these cup finals, but got there on the back of his goal-scoring abilities. And given the backing he's getting from that half-back line, or that midfield you've just seen, where Brown has been dominating, Armstrong, fluid, I think he'll get service. If I had to make a prediction, I'll say Griffiths will score on Saturday. Yeah,
okay. I think I might have the odds on that, Archie, for you. Just no off chance that you might like a flutter on it. He's 7-2 to get the first goal with Rooney. 7-1, Ruffy.
Yeah, I think most of the Celtic supporters will be on Griffiths to score first. When he was playing regular last year and scoring 40 goals, he was the first goal scorer. So I think a lot of Celtic supporters must have made a lot of money that season. But you're right. You know, I think he's a better player. I think he's a different kind of player now, oozing the confidence, and I think he's a big player for them. We're talking about him, and we're talking about Sinclair and obviously Armstrong, but I think the wee boy McGregor has come on leaps and bounds. I think he gives Celtic that wee bit of extra energy. When it was Beaton, it was in there, it was slow, it was laborious, it was a European style of keeping a hold of the ball, but I think McGregor gives you something special. Yeah,
well, Celtic 1-0, 2-0 or 2-1 is 7-1 with quite a lot of bookmakers. Aberdeen to win the game by a 1-0 is incredibly 18-1. Well, let's go into their camp and just get a flavour from a couple of their players, Mark Reynolds and the goalkeeper Joe Lewis, on whether they can pull off the shock or not.
We need to make sure we don't have any lapses in concentration. We need to be concentrating for 90 plus minutes, and you know we've got confidence in our ability in the change room. So we're looking forward to it.
We're under no illusion. Celtic are used to that. They're used to pressure. They're used to winning games. They're a big team, and this is what Celtic's all about. And we need to make sure that's us, that we can live in the uncomfortable conditions that they're used to. So no, we'll go full of confidence, fully expecting Celtic to be firing on all cylinders and really up for it. They're going for a treble. They're going to be undefeated in all domestic competitions. So no, it's a massive game, but we just hope we can turn up, and we know we've got players in the team that can win games for us. We know we've got players in the team that can stop them scoring goals. So if everybody turns up and does their job, then we're sure we can give them a run for the money.
Yeah, they got a wee confidence boost as well, Ruffy, with a couple of the Aberdeen players called up to the international squad.
Yeah, and that'll be good not only for the players that get up there, but the whole squad. Because you do bounce off, the people who have been selected. So yeah, they'll go there with confidence. Not a lot of confidence, obviously, with the stats that you've just thrown out there. They'll be apprehensive. That's why I think, and Archie's right. You have to watch when you play with Celtic, because they can really just open you up at the drop of a hat. I just think Aberdeen in the first 10-15 minutes have to do what Rangers did. They have to let Celtic know that they're in it to win it. They have to be in about Celtic. They have to, not give them any time on the ball. We saw what Rangers did it for 40 minutes in one of the games, and it was successful. But again, on the opposite side of that, if you're doing that, sometimes you leave gaps, and with the pace at Sinclair, and if it's Roberts or Forrest on either side, it could be dangerous. I just think that Derek needs his team, and the supporters are saying, look, just go there and have a go, because we've been backs to the wall every time we go there, and the players haven't been formed. So get them up to be right first 10-15 minutes to have a go.
Well, an early goal will kill them. I mean, it really will. If they can defend, keep that shut at the back firmly, grow with confidence on that, get the supporters being patient, because I think Celtic are going to be dominant in much of this game. And if you get that relationship between players giving their all, making it clear they're going to work their butts off, and that encourages the support, because although they're faithful, they must realise they're playing a game in which they're very, very much the underdogs. And in that sense, it's a one-off. You never know. An early goal for Aberdeen, even saying that, I just can't see Celtic losing this one.
I think the goalkeeper came out with, Joe Lewis came out with there, they have to concentrate for 90 minutes, because we've saw in the first 10 minutes of a game against Celtic, there was no concentration whatsoever, and we've saw against Rangers, in the last 10 minutes of a game, they lose goals as well. So they have to be on top of their game for 90 minutes.
Yeah, well, they do have a man with a bit of experience of lifting the Scottish Cup, Graham Shinney.
The best achievements in my career so far, to lift it as well at the club and the team we had there was brilliant. The semi-final beating Celtic was a whirlwind game, and then it was a different kind of game in the final, because we were going in as favourites against Falkirk, and ended up getting a man sent off, and they came back into it, and people thought they would have probably went on to win it, and James Vincent came up and scored the winner. And you can't describe the feeling. If you could bottle it up and sell it, you would make millions. It's one of the best feelings you can have, obviously apart from having kids and whatever else, but the feeling of winning a trophy in football is brilliant. The celebrations that come with it and all that you can remember of it, no, it's really good.
Yeah, well, that could be an inspiration for the Aberdeen players. What about the Aberdeen fans? We caught up with Aberdeen fan Chris Scott a little earlier to get his thoughts on whether they could put all the misery of their previous head-to-heads with Celtic this season and finally lift the silverware.
Yeah, they can. It's obviously going to be difficult. Celtic are strong from front to back, but they do have their weaknesses, and we exploited some of them last Friday. You look at the likes of Boyata, don't think he's the strongest. If we can get Johnny Hayes, Niall McGinn running at him, the big question is, what do we do up front? I don't think we have an ideal solution in either Rooney or Stockley for the type of game it's likely to be. But if Aberdeen perform, if we can keep it tight at the back, and if we can maintain our calm at the back, which has been a problem of late, then yeah, we'll have a chance. We're kind of relying on Celtic having a bit of an off day, but they'll have it in them at some point. They'll slip up, and Aberdeen have the players to punish them.
Well, I've got a lot of time for Derek McInnes. I mean, I think Chris Scott there, an Aberdeen fan, highlighting the problems they have. You know, we're talking about keeping it tight. Then you have a go at Celtic. Sometimes if you have a go, you leave yourself wide open to them as well. There are so many areas where I think it would have to be something out of left field that destabilises Celtic, Archie, because of the nature of what they've got at stake.
I wish I could see it though. I mean, if perchance Celtic were to push forward, and we've talked about the pace that particularly Hayes has, and Rooney, They might be caught out in that regard. But I go back to what I originally said. They have to defend and defend hard. They have to close the game down, as Alan said, getting at them.
Do you think they have good defenders, Archie, to do that?
No. No, I'm not sure that they have. Look at the goals they conceded against Rangers, for example, up at Pittodrie, these sudden 3 goals. You don't actually lose 3 goals like that against a Rangers team that had been on the back foot for most of the game. You're really caught out. So, no, I think there's a bit of dubiety about that.
Yeah, they've got the work cut out, Ruffy. Unless it's a sending off or something like that, I just cannot see how they're going to walk away with the trophy. It would be, and of course, as many a person has talked about here, Celtic have got so many other things that they're looking to chase here, going the entire season undefeated.
Yeah, it would have to be something special for Aberdeen, plus Celtic having an off day. I mean, there was a game just recently where Dembele and Roberts weren't in the game.
Yeah.
They would have to hope that another 2 don't turn up on the day, and maybe John Hayes hits something from 25 yards.
Okay, it is a possibility. There have been down through the years cup shocks. Archie's probably witnessed more cup shocks than we've ever seen in our life, so we'll maybe discuss that possibility. Of course, we've got a man here who provided one of the biggest ever cup shocks in 1971, Ruffy, in the Partick Thistle side. Strange things do happen. The Dons could come up trumps at Hampden. What do you think? We'll talk more about it after the break. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV2. Well, we'll be listening to some of the players from the Aberdeen camp. Now time to go into the Celtic camp, a Celtic side that has gone through the entire season in the league undefeated, only 4 draws in there, and now they're looking to go undefeated throughout the entire domestic season, of course winning the League Cup final against Aberdeen by 3-0, and now back in the Scottish Cup final. Here's a little flavour of the Celtic camp. Dedrick Boyata, Patrick Roberts and Craig Gordon.
You know how important that cup is as well, and how important it will be for all of us. It will be very, very sad and hard if we don't finish on a high.
If it's going to be the last game, I obviously want to go on a high, and obviously doing the treble at this massive club will be big for me, and hopefully we can do that on the weekend.
It's a great opportunity to go in and make history, be one of the best teams that's ever played for this club. We know the importance of it. We know what's on the line and what's at stake. So yeah, we go in and play our game. If we can concentrate on our performance and play well enough to win the game, then all that will come with it.
They'll certainly go down in history if they achieve this, Ruffy. I just wonder about levels of teams and where they would rank alongside some of the absolute greats. I'm going to get Archie's thoughts on it in a minute, but it's different times. I mean, it's still a tremendous achievement. You can only beat what's put in front of you. But
yeah, I mean, people will be out there saying it's not a strong Hearts side. It's not a strong, Rangers side. It's a reasonable, strong Aberdeen side, and that's the kind of things. But in saying that, you've still got to do it. You've still got to go out there. And all the games, I can only remember one game and they looked as if they weren't going to do it, and that was against Motherwell. It was 4-3, and they had to come from behind that game. But they've just strolled through it. And you have to give them credit for their level of consistency. And not only the 11 on the part, but anybody else on the bench that comes on has been. And the thing for me is it's been entertaining.
Yes.
If you've been a Celtic supporter and you've been to all these games, you've been thoroughly entertained. And you're, some people we know say it gets boring. And it's embarrassing that they're winning all the time. If you're a Celtic supporter and you're paying your season ticket and you're going along watching that level of football, it must be an incredible year for the supporters.
Except that there comes a stage when you become jaded watching somebody winning all the time. It doesn't matter what anybody says. I know people have been saying to me, would I go and see Celtic against Ross County? And in other words, the selection of games.
Yes.
Not being at a game, but deciding which game to go to. Now, even when Celtic, round about the 6th year under Steen, when they were winning 67, their attendances began to dip a bit at Celtic Park because it was just routine. And I think in any sport, if something comes routine, like take tennis, where either a man or a woman dominates for an era, as we've seen, you tend to lessen your interest.
Yeah.
There has to be elements of unpredictability in sport. And Celtic successfully, and to their credit, have taken unpredictability out of this season.
Yeah, I don't want to put a dampener on it in any way or try and take a negative out of it, Archie. I think they're a good team. They entertain, as Ruffy has mentioned. The barometer that I think Brendan Rodgers is going by, he's looking at Europe, and they didn't get a win in the Champions League.
No.
You know, so they by all means, I mean, it's Craig Gordon's line there saying going down as one of the best Celtic teams. You know, they're a long, long way off that.
If they had done better in Europe, you could have claimed that, but they finished bottom of their group. A very hard group, by the way. I don't think many teams would have survived in that group with the teams they had to play. So in that respect, the quality of football domestically hasn't really been challenging for them. And they've been a very, very good team. But there'll be endless discussion about comparing past and present because of their singular, unique achievement this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Craig Gordon expanded more on what it means to the players to go completely unbeaten throughout the entire season.
That's football. You can lose any match to anybody. You know, that's what makes the season we've had so special so far. And we know we're one game away from going undefeated throughout the entire domestic season. So you know, the manager said at the weekend that he didn't think that would be done again in a lifetime. So it's a massive opportunity for us, one that we can't ignore. We have to go out there and play with the confidence that we've been playing with, and if we can do that, then we'll give ourselves a great chance.
Yeah, it's a chance to put themselves into Celtic folklore, certainly into the history books, as well as the Invincibles through the domestic campaign. We caught up earlier with a Celtic fan looking forward to the cup final with Celtic red-hot favourites. Brian Gilmer can only see one winner.
You don't want to. I'm on a programme watched by many millions, so you don't want to set yourself up for a fall. But if Celtic turn up, I can't see anything other than a Celtic victory.
And it's fitting in this week of all weeks that everything seems to be focusing on the Lions. It would be a fitting tribute that I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will emphasise to the players: get the treble, go undefeated, and of course celebrate the achievements of 50 years ago in style.
Well, special things happen at special seasons for Celtic. The centenary season was a double. The night we were 125 years old, we beat Barcelona, and here we are 50 years from the Lisbon Lions, and we've got an opportunity to not only be unbeaten to win the league, but unbeaten to win a treble, which would be a fantastic tribute.
What do you make of the opposition? I mean, 5 games, Celtic have won all 5 games, 12 goals, only 2 conceded. I mean, Derek McInnes's team would have to play out of their skins, and Celtic, I would presume, would have to be right off the mark.
Absolutely. I suppose Aberdeen will be taking confidence in the fact that they've come to Glasgow in the post-split fixtures. Last couple of years they've not performed post-split. This year they have performed post-split. They've come to Glasgow, they've won at Firhill and they've won at Ibrox. So that sort of challenge of coming to Glasgow, I'm sure that's what he'll be talking to his players about. But you just can't see anything other than a confident Celtic team walking onto the park. And if there's a couple of early goals, I'm just not sure how Aberdeen would cope with that.
Yeah, I mean, the Celtic players, all of them, all of the squads, fit and training. Dembele, I would imagine he might fancy a place on the bench as well. There are so many players that can cause Aberdeen damage.
Well, and one of the things Brendan always talks about, it's not about the 11 starting players, it's often about the 11 players who finish the game. And you've got, as you say, Dembele, you've got probably James Forrest, and it'll be one of Rogic or McGregor. McGregor scored at Hampden. Rogic can do things. Those are 3 players who can turn the game. That if 3 of those 4 will be on the bench. So that added dynamic is, I think, what turns it for Celtic.
OK, give us your prediction.
3-0 Celtic.
There you are. There's confidence for you, Ruffy.
And obviously with the 5 games that's been played and the goals that's been scored, you would say that if you're a Celtic supporter, because you would go along there knowing, as he just said there, doesn't matter what 11's on, whoever comes on after that is still equal to whoever's coming off. So you're right, it has to be an off day by Celtic, but we haven't seen any.
No.
So you're wondering who's all going to have an off day, because they all look really determined to see this through.
Now, sometimes, Archie, you know, we're guilty in the media of taking a scattergun approach to all match officials, you know, under one umbrella of being poor. I happen to like Bobby Madden. I think he's a good referee. He's got better over the years. I don't look at him and think, you know, that there's going to be, he's not a safe pair of hands for this. I always think referees just get through it unscathed and nobody's talking about you.
Yeah, I remember doing a cup final. Alan will remember it. It was Dundee United against Motherwell. And it was a pretty tough game. And Davy Syme was the referee. I like Big Davy. He was a nice big. I even knew his father. And there was only. It was at times you thought it was going to be carnage. As I can recollect, there was only one booking to the end, and so I piled in and said, "This was ridiculous. They should have sent a message to the players right away." Da 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 da. Following day, I'm going on holiday. I'm in the queue. This guy taps me on the shoulder. Davy Syme, ready to take me to task for it. Very pleasantly, I have to say. I really feel referees on these occasions have to be very firm at the start of the game. They've got to let people know that they'll stamp on something. Now, I know there are far too many yellow cards issued nowadays, in my view, but I think in this instance, and I don't think it's going to be an untidy game anyway. I don't really think that. He's got to be on top of the game, Bobby Madden, and I think he will be.
Yeah, I think he's a steady pair of hands. I like him this season.
Yeah, I think he's good at the game. No controversy hanging over him. Nobody saying, "Oh, what about that game he had?" or whatever. No, let's just focus on this game. But I think the players have got a big part to play. We've saw this year that players have let the referees down by some of their play acting.
Okay, so Bobby Madden's the man in the middle. We wish him all the very best, and his additional match officials for the big match. It's the Scottish Cup final. We're going to hear from two guys who have experienced the Scottish Cup final, in Alex McLeish and Paul Hartley, after the break. We're also going to talk to Archie more about that classic year 1967. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show here on STV2. Alan Ruff and Archie MacPherson are with me as we look ahead to the Cup final, the last game of the domestic season. Of course, there will be playoffs that will keep everyone on the edge of their seat. But at Hampden, there's a fair split. One footnote to the game, and I think it's rather appropriate that both Aberdeen and Celtic have emphasised that there won't be any return with the Cup for you know, an open-top bus parade. Given the tragic events in Manchester, there is a high alert, and you can understand why both clubs have taken that stance, Ruffy.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got to respect what's happened recently, and I'm sure the supporters will take that on board. I think it's really important that we focus on the football and everything goes smoothly. Yeah,
and if the Aberdeen or Celtic win the Cup, I'm sure it's the perfect day to parade it. First day of the season, lifts everybody walking around the pitch.
Although you sometimes feel as if these horrible people are winning. They're changing our lifestyle.
Yeah.
They're changing our habits. They're changing our conduct. And that's a pity. And yes, inevitably you have to take precautions. But you know, it's worrying. My views are divided about this. I sometimes feel no. Go your normal way, do the normal things, be wary, but do the normal things. So, but I'll go along with what I've decided.
Yeah, I think in the current climate, especially so soon after Manchester as well, both clubs rightly at this point just making a slight change to the arrangements, but I don't think it will dampen the spirits of either set of fans if the Cup has red and white ribbons or indeed green and white ribbons at the end of the 90 minutes or possibly more, Ruffy.
Yeah, that's up to Aberdeen. I think Aberdeen have to prove to everybody that they can go there and stand up to a terrific Celtic side this year. And again, they'll hope that all their players turn up, because it's not any good just 2 or 3 turning up. They all need to turn up, and that's the only chance I think they've got.
Well, it'll be a feather in the cap of Derek McInnes, as it was for the Aberdeen boss Alex Smith when he guided the Dons to a cup victory against Celtic. It's been a long time coming, 27 years the wait. Alex McLeish reflected on that this week.
Expected them sometime in between there to have done another Scottish Cup winning feat like we did in 1990 there, but again there's been a lot of transition with Aberdeen through the years, different managers, and I know they won a League Cup with Big Roy, and then the success of Derek McInnes, relative success of him coming and building a really consistent side. This looks like the one real crack they can have at it.
I'll tell you, if he pulls it off, you know, I hate to say this, you know,
immortal.
Well, it's I love the way you've used that. It's not quite that, but what it is, Archie, is yes, he puts himself in the Aberdeen history books, but in a strange sort of way, I think that's the ceiling. I think he could possibly look and say that's the perfect chance for someone to then prize me away from Aberdeen, because that's what people do who have ambition.
Yeah, I was talking to Craig Brown about Derek McInnes. He has the highest respect for him, and in a sense, Derek will be looking at the people who helped him in life, and particularly in the end of his managerial life, because he was on the way out in England.
Yeah.
When Craig suggested Aberdeen should go for him and take him, and the rest is history, as it were. So people go through ups and downs, we all do in their careers, and sometimes a wee lucky break, or somebody fancies you to do something and you move on to the next stage. And he's done well being given that job. And really, honestly, anything out of the city of Glasgow for any manager is a difficult job.
Yeah, and over and above that, Robbie, this season I think Aberdeen fans will look back, win or lose, 2 cup finals, second, 9 points ahead of Rangers in third.
Yeah, it's been a great season for them, and obviously this game tomorrow, if they were to win it, would cap it all, and that's what they'll be determined to do. But I would like to think that the Aberdeen supporters will still come back next year with a lot of hope, buy season tickets up, because I think Derek does want to move the team on a wee bit. He's going to lose maybe 2 or 3 players, but again, the exciting bit of that is, you know, who's coming in, what kind of players is he going to identify?
Yep, and of course Paul Hartley sampled life in the red of Aberdeen and the green and white of Celtic. The midfielder, now out of a job after losing his position at Dundee, looked ahead to this final and talked about the Celtic manager in particular. Here's Paul Hartley's thoughts on Brendan Rodgers.
I've experienced that at first hand, being up seeing him and seeing how he works, and you know, he's an incredible manager. The job that he's done there, I think he's brought life back into Scottish football, not just Celtic. But I think the game in a whole in Scotland is, you know, everybody's benefited from Brendan being here. I think the respect that the players have for him, you know, on the training pitch, he's outstanding. But just as a person, I think he's got time for everyone.
Yep, he really has galvanised the Celtic side, but I think he's injected a real interest in Scottish football, Brendan Rodgers, Archie.
Yeah, I spoke to one player, Craig Beattie, who used to be with Celtic, was all over the English league, and was a player under him. I think it was Swansea.
Yes.
Probably. He said he's the best coach I've ever worked with. And Craig Beattie has obviously worked with some, even at the highest level. So that's accommodation coming from one player. He's been able to make, I mean, there haven't been all that many changes from the previous season, really. And Celtic haven't spent lavishly.
Yeah.
You know, it's pennies compared to what's happening in the rest of Europe. So what do you need when you're getting a new unit together? Somebody who can get the best out of players and play apparently easily within different systems, and having good players. And like Steen himself 50 years ago, or even more than 50 years ago, when he came to Celtic for the first time, everybody thought, he'll have a jumble sale, get rid of it, they're achieving nothing, Rangers dominating, couldn't beat Rangers, etc., etc. he didn't make many changes actually in that side. He brought in one or two. So yes, some people say, well, what use is a manager nowadays? You know, just keep players fit and send them out. I think Brendan Rodgers has shown and proved that the managerial dimension is still very important.
Okay, I'm going to finish it off by saying to you guys, give me a prediction and back it up.
Oh, I think Celtic will score goals between 2 and 3, I would say. I mean, good luck to Aberdeen. I know I'm kind of downbeat about them, but nevertheless, they're playing a great team at the moment in the final. So I think between 2 and 3, your supporter was probably nearly right with 3. I think at the end of the day, Celtic will win with ease.
I think Celtic will score 2 goals. I don't think Aberdeen have got 3 goals in them against Celtic. I do think they'll get chances against Celtic, like everybody else. If you don't take them, you'll be beaten.
Yeah, okay. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our look at the Cup final. I certainly hope you enjoy the game as well. Just one little footnote to a week of 1967. We've had some great stories along the way. I hope you've enjoyed our coverage of it. 67, well, we talked about the clubs. It was nice to finish off with a win over the reigning champions of the world in England as well, Archie.
Yes.
That was a great tale of when we were half decent at international level.
Yeah, but a sad tale as well. It's a reminder to people out there, a club died that week as well, Thurlanark. Thurlanark, on a few days after Celtic had won that cup, went down on a minibus to play their last game against Dumbarton. They were beaten 5-1, and guess who scored the goal for Thurlanark, who went later on to Hearts to score a lot of goals. His name begins with Drew
Jarvie.
Busby.
No, Drew Busby. Drew Busby scored the last ever goal for a senior club disappearing in Scottish football. And that was a sad day because it determined the way we have to think in the future of the haves and the have-nots.
I think it's a perfect way to finish off the programme, not necessarily on a negative point, but possibly on the fact that you look to Alan to provide you with the answer to that question. Because I could see the vacant look on his face as soon as you said, even if you'd gone, but I'm sure he still wouldn't have got it, Archie. But nevertheless, always a pleasure having Archie MacPherson on the programme. And of course, you know, who better than to look at 1967 in all its glory, despite, of course, the nightmare of Thurlanark. We got his expertise on the Scottish Cup final. Do enjoy the game, go to the match, enjoy it with your family and celebrate, or indeed still back your team if it doesn't go according to plan. Thanks to Archie MacPherson for joining us. Thanks to Alan Ruff, and from myself and everyone who's worked on the Peter and Ruffy football show this season. Thank you very much for your support. Look out for all our summer specials. There are some very special people on it. Thank you and good night.